You're watching Friday. You'd have heard one of our guests talking about Ukraine's ingenuity and the stealth-like deployment of its drones and new technology. All of that on full display in the early hours of this morning when a naval drone took out part of the Kerch bridge that links Russia with Ukraine. We'll discuss tonight what that means to Ukraine's counteroffensive. Also on the program, reaction to the news that Russia is restoring its grain blockade in the Black Sea. The UN says the poorest countries will pay the price if Ukraine is denied access to world markets. And a breakthrough on Alzheimer's treatment, 2 new drugs coming to market that will slow the effects of the disease, giving hope for millions of families around the world. All that to come on Sunday. Vladimir Putin told the Russian people that the Ukrainian counteroffensive had failed in the early hours of this morning. The Ukrainian special forces sent an unmanned naval drone controlled remote and blew up his bridge that links Ukraine with mainland Russia. The daylight pictures show that one side of it is now out of action for Ukrainians. The Kerch Bridge that was inaugurated by Vladimir Putin in 2018 is a hated symbol of Russian occupation. For Moscow, it is a vital link in resupplying Russian forces that occupy Crimea and the southern Kherson region, and that further complicates their logistical problems. But more than that, it demonstrates in the most visible fashion that the Ukrainian character of fences is very much alive, and it is a further blow to Putin's propaganda. Our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg reports it's been called Russia's most important bridge, and it's been attacked again. You can see the road split and sloping. Russia says Ukrainian naval drones struck at night. 2 people were killed in the explosion. The bridge links the Russian mainland with annexed Crimea. It's a vital supply route for Russian troops fighting in Ukraine. Russian investigators called it a terrorist attack by the Ukrainian. If the Ukrainians managed to compromise that line of communication anyway, and so, this is all part of getting ahead of the drag curve, getting ahead of the game. Understanding what your vulnerabilities are and how you defend those vulnerabilities at all costs, and then understanding what the consequences are and what the contingency planning is if that critical vulnerability is compromised. And now it's happened. I think what would be really interesting to see play out is the way that Russia deals with that. You mentioned using a sea line of communication, which is one contingency plan. But there are only so many contingencies that you can actually have. And until you get to what's called a culminating point. This is all campaign planning parlance, And if there's a culminating point, which is a consequence of the bridge being taken, then again, why were Russia leaving that bridge open to vulnerability? And how could they have prevented Ukraine from taking such an action? Yeah, well, in the long term, it may prove to be a crucially important moment. Mike, it's good to have you on the program. Thank you for coming.